council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Aye. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland. Aye. Kamer. Aye. Lombardo. Aye. McKittrick. Aye. Malik. Aye. Mosley. Aye. Neal. Here. Amobian. Aye. Somerville. Aye. All members are present.
Thank you. For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand as we are led in prayer by Joe Tucker, who is the Executive Director of South Street Ministries. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilwoman Baylor will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I pray, I'll say something really quickly. As someone who grew up in the prayer movement, when I don't have the words to pray, I turn to some prescripted prayers, which I'm going to share with you today. So this is the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying we are born to eternal life. Another prayer I often pivot to is shared by my recovery community. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Aye. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland. Aye. Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley. Aye. Neal.
Abstain.
Amobian. Somerville.
Aye.
The minutes pass 12-0 with 1 abstention.
Before you, you have a copy of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Aye. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco. Aye. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes 13-0.
We have no items up for public hearing this evening, so we're going to move right into our old business. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
We'll continue to refer. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. Time on 1 through and including 8. The wish of the committee on item number 9 is for suspension of the rules with a favorable report. This here particular piece is the conditional use that we had a public hearing on last week. Questions were brought forward during committee. We met with the petitioner and the person who had the questions, who lived next door to this property on Jewett Street. And Mr. Antonucci and I met with them, resolved any questions that came up, and I know that the Ward Council Representative Sharon Connor is in favor of this as well. So we're recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Aye. Freeman. Aye. Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley. Aye. Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Councilman Fusco, what is your pleasure on the rest of the agenda?
File item number 10, and then time on the balance.
Okay, time will be granted. We'll now move to public service. Councilwoman Mosley. I do believe we have a substitute. We'll have our clerk read that in for you.
Yes, this is a substitute offered as an amendment offered by Mosley. Resolution declaring it necessary to improve Miller Road between the termini of Ridgewood Road and West Market Street by resurfacing and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is suspension of the rules with favorable report.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley. Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 13-0.
That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1, offered by Fusco. Resolution approving and confirming the appointments of Mayor Daniel Horrigan, Chris Luddle, Thomas Tatum, Helen Tomic, Shamus Malik, Ginger Baylor, Linda Amobian for the year 2023 as members of the Northeast Ohio 4-County Regional Planning and Development Organization, with alternates Samuel DeSager, Michelle DeFiore, Jim Ashley, and Kurt Mulhauser, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Consent agenda.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda. Absolutely. Councilman Malik?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to hopefully serve on this board again, but I did want to just take a second to thank our city staff who serve on this board, particularly Mr. Tatum, who actually serves in a leadership role for NEFCO and has done a lot of great work. And, you know, I really appreciate it's great to see the leadership role that these civil servants do on a day-to-day basis, interacting with other civil servants from across our 4-county area. So I just want to take a second to thank them.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the purchase of certain real property located in the 5 Points and Summit Lake areas from the Summit County Land Bank in furtherance of real estate development in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
3 was the substitute that was read in during public service, and number 4 was withdrawn. Item number 5 is offered by Mosley. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for additional funding for the construction of the taxiway lighting and signage at the Akron-Fulton Airport and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley. Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 6, offered by Mosley. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for the upgrade of the electrical system at the Summit Lake Community Center and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley?
Yes, consent agenda, please.
Okay, this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Councilwoman Mosley, Councilwoman Holland, and Councilman Malik. Resolution urging local leaders to join the Power a Clean Future Ohio campaign to develop and implement climate solutions and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Refer.
This item will be referred. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We're now going to move to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. Going to ask all those wishing to participate, if you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please answer, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just going to ask, when you hear your name, please approach the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body, and we are going to start with Max Brockwell.
Good evening, members of council, members of the Akron community, and esteemed colleagues. My name is Max Brockwell. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I'm a second-year medical student at NeoMed. I'd like to start out by just taking a moment to sincerely and from the bottom of my heart just thank the Akron City Council for the strong support regarding the debt relief proposal that was voted upon last week at City Council and passed unanimously. I'd like to share a story that sort of emphasizes why we need to be addressing this now rather than waiting until later when more funds are available. This story was shared in the Ohio Capitol Journal just earlier this month, and it's about a fellow Ohioan named Paul Davis. Mr. Davis was faced with an impossible choice of being burdened with bills for a medication treating his rare form of eye cancer known as uveal melanoma. Cancer drugs are extremely expensive, especially the ones that are new and the most effective at providing treatment for these diseases. And when Mr. Davis was looking at the cost of this therapy, it costs almost $50,000 per cycle of administration to be able to afford care. Consider if you were faced with that amount of money in order to face a life-threatening diagnosis. Uveal melanoma is something that is very serious and not taken lightly. But I mean, I think Mr. Davis puts it best. Is it worth bankrupting my family for me to hang around for a couple of years? I don't want to make that choice. And this is the choice that Ohioans are faced with every day. People are diagnosed with these diseases relatively frequently, and that's a very unfortunate truth, but we have an opportunity to improve upon the situation. So, you know, in the past week, there have been a lot of discussions about looking at the budget, specifically where funds are allocated currently, stuff about logistics, and some details that I'm not as qualified as other people to analyze. However, I think it was important that we had those conversations so we could walk away with a stronger understanding of where we stand and where we need to be going in the next week. Last week, we voted unanimously that this is something we want in the budget this year. Now, we need to go and do the foot on the ground work to actually get this done. So I would urge every member of council here to go have conversations, you know, with the citizens of Akron, with each other, with the mayor's office, and with the administration, so that we can ensure that over the next week, as we're talking about how we want to change the budget, we ensure we include an appropriate amount of funds to get help to the residents of Akron that need it now. Not later, but now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brockwell. Melanie Bortel.
Good evening, council members, colleagues, and Akron community. My name is Melanie Bortel, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm a family medicine physician who's been serving the Akron community for almost 15 years, and I'm honored to be here today in support of the medical debt relief for the residents of Akron. As a primary care doctor, I'm frequently the first person to see a patient for a medical problem that he or she may come in with. When I see a patient, I'm frequently able to manage that on my own and treat the condition. However, at times there's additional testing that's needed in order to figure out the best way to manage the patient. Other times, patients are too sick to be managed outside of the hospital. And I'm sad to say that I cannot even count the number of times that a patient's declined additional testing or did not go to the emergency department due to fear of cost. I recently saw a patient in the office who had been admitted to the hospital a few months prior because of a ruptured large intestine due to an infection. At that time, he needed surgery and was admitted to the hospital for about a week and got IV antibiotics. This day, he presented to my office complaining of similar symptoms that he had had when he needed the surgery the last time. When I recommended that he go back to the emergency department to determine if he needed another surgery or more IV antibiotics, he stated he couldn't go back because he had such a large bill from the prior admission. He stated he'd never be able to pay the bill and he didn't want to add to it. I talked with him about if he had another infection and it wasn't treated quickly, the infection could spread to his bloodstream or his colon could perforate again and he could die. However, even with this information, he did not want to go to the hospital due to concern for a large bill. I tried to compromise with him, ask him if he would agree to ordering a CAT scan as an outpatient, which would provide a smaller bill, however, still be thousands of dollars. and he declined again due to cost. About a week later, his symptoms worsened. He did end up getting admitted again. He required more IV antibiotics and was again admitted for about a week. This delay in care could have killed him. He survived this time, but what about the next time? Can you imagine being faced with this choice, deciding between possible life and death due to concern for a medical bill? Or chances are you or someone you know has probably been in this situation. Unfortunately, this scenario is very common, and it affects about 4 in 10 adults in the US that say that they have some kind of medical debt. Even more startling is the fact that 2/3 of bankruptcies cite medical debt as a leading cause. This problem needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved now. If not, the disparities in healthcare caused by differences in income will continue to worsen, and more lives will be lost. For these reasons and many more, I strongly advise the City of Akron to utilize funds to help relieve medical debt for the community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Bortel. Dr. Kubetz?
Good evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council, for this opportunity to speak. And I should say that I, too, am speaking on my own behalf. I'm not here representing Akron Children's Hospital or any other professional entity. I have practiced in the Akron community as a pediatric oncologist for the past 22 years. So I treat children with cancer. I do bone marrow transplants for children who require a bone marrow transplant. And you see a lot of medical students over there. I was a medical student about 1,000 years ago, and I took a lot of biochemistry and a lot of biology and a lot of genetics, and what I didn't take any of was economics or finance courses. But you quickly learn when you get out into the, quote, real world, end quote, that money affects everything you do. And we don't like to say it out loud, but financial resources, patients, families' financial resource influences pretty much every aspect of their care, including outcome to therapy. And financial stressors exist every day of every week of every year for these kids and their families. And it can be a day-to-day, hour-to-hour thing. Is there money to park in the parking garage? Is there money for meals in the cafeteria? Is there money for copay for prescription drugs? It can be these can be stressors or financial considerations that are active for decades. Is the child going to go to college? Is there money to stay in the home? Do the siblings go to college? It's very common when parents are, when there are 2 earner families, that one parent has to either take a hiatus or just leave the job altogether. And it has to do with predictability. You can sort of schedule chemotherapy. You can't schedule infections. You can't schedule complications. Hospitalizations could be 2 nights or could be 2 months. And so that sort of inability to predict and plan your life comes down to dollars and cents for these families. So I guess I would just close by saying, too, that these financial considerations, I'm convinced, bubble and infiltrate into every aspect of the family life. And it's very, very common for marriages to break up in situations where children have cancer and are being treated for cancer. If we as a community can muster resources to help to alleviate these problems, we'll have accomplished a tangible good for these families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Joseph Zarkani.
Good evening, Madam President, council members, members of the community. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak here. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm Dr. Joseph Zarkani, a tenured professor of medicine and recently retired kidney specialist who practiced in this community for 3.5 decades. I've really been proud to have had the opportunity to be faculty mentor to this group of students that many of you have had a chance to work with and interact with. I want to assure everyone here that I'm the one being mentored here. And so I want to thank you all for working with them and them for working with me. Our profession has to stop boasting that we have the best healthcare system in the world, because we don't. And until we have an equitable healthcare system that everyone in our communities and our country can access, we have to stop boasting that healthcare system, and we have to start taking on these inequities. This group of students and the allies they've recruited, not just in the Akron area and statewide, but across the country, give me hope that this overwhelming process of reforming our healthcare system can begin by taking on a challenge at a time. So we want to continue to thank Akron City Council for your support of this effort of medical debt relief. We want to continue to have our work with you and to urge the mayor's office and the staff of the mayor's office and our county colleagues to take this on as well. Each of us in our profession took an oath to serve. Each of you in your profession took an oath to serve. And tonight we began with the prayer of St. Francis, where there's despair, let us bring hope. This is an opportunity for all of us to work together to face that despair in our community and bring hope to countless people in our communities here who are suffering under the burden of medical debt. This is a chance for us to work together to fulfill the oaths that all of us took. Thank you for this opportunity.
Doctor, thank you so much. Michael Massey?
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be with you all. I am Michael Massey, and I'm the president of our NeoMed chapter of Students for National Health Program. I'm also a second-year medical student to speak again on the urgent need for medical debt relief in the city of Akron. To be honest, I was not planning on testifying today, since the City Council has been so receptive in passing a resolution declaring that they are in support of this project, and I know that the administration is open to allocating funds to this project in this year's budget as well. However, in the past week alone, I was confronted with another patient story that drove me to testify again tonight. Since the last City Council meeting, I met a patient who had type 1 diabetes, which is a condition that requires comprehensive medical care. It requires multiple prescriptions, including 2 forms of insulin, constant blood sugar monitoring, and checkup appointments to look out for the development of severe complications. And based off this patient's presentation this past week, it was clear his diabetes was out of control. So what happened? How did this patient fail to manage his diabetes? Well, he made a critical error. He became employed to help lift him and his family out of poverty, which disqualified them from Medicaid. Since then, he had to stop seeing his endocrinologist and became unable to monitor his blood sugar. It was clear the patient was very concerned about his health, and he told the physician told him that he needed more specialized care at another facility to get his diabetes under control. And the patient was very agreeable with the physician's recommendations until he heard the healthcare location that was recommended. Even though this location is designed to care for uninsured and underinsured individuals, the patient's exact words to the physician were, "But I owe them money. I don't know if they'll take me." While the physician tried to reassure the patient that they could work out a charitable payment plan while they were receiving care at that location, the patient ultimately left while it was unclear if they would schedule a follow-up appointment at that location that may pressure him to pay bills that he's not ready to afford yet. This encounter reminded me that of all my patient experiences, nearly every single one of them has either dealt with a fear of being unable to pay for their care or a flat-out deterioration of that patient's health while they were already in debt. I just wanted to remind everyone in this room that we aren't speaking about an abstract concept here when we talk about extinguishing millions of dollars of medical debt. There are tens of thousands of Akron residents with stories just like my patient. I know the administration may have some further questions about the logistics of a partnership with RIP Medical Debt, and I just wanted to say that we've already provided a lot of information to Councilwoman Holland about this project, but we'd be willing to be a resource for you going forward. And since the budget does have to be approved by March 31st, I just really urge you to act swiftly and outline necessary funding for this project in this year's budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Massey. Reverend John Beatty?
Madam President and members of the council, I was going to read to you a written message, but I'm a Christian I'm not a politician. And I just think it might be a low blow to perhaps some in this council room. So I'm not going to read it. But I would like to recommend this book. It's called A Necessary Book for All People Invested in Societal Change, White Fragility. Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism, by a white woman, Robin DiAngelo. already mentioned a wonderful book called Caste by a black journalist woman in a previous message to you. I'd like to read to you this book. Copious research attests to the disdain of whites for African Americans, from the school to prison pipeline, to mass incarceration, to white flight. For example, on attitude surveys, most whites say they would prefer neighborhoods that are no more than 30% black. And more than half of whites say they would not move into a neighborhood that is 30% black or more. Studies of actual mobility patterns not only confirm these preferences, but also show that whites downplay them. White flight has been triggered when a formerly white neighborhood reaches 7% black. And in neighborhoods with more than a few black families, white housing demand tends to disappear. That is, the demand disappears unless white people need that housing because of unaffordable home prices in other neighborhoods. In that case, black people are pushed out as gentrification increases. I would remind you about plans for Summit Lake. Brooklyn, Harlem, Oakland, and Seattle are prime examples. A 2015 study by the American Sociological Foundation found that the highest level of segregation is between blacks and whites. The lowest is between Asians and whites, and the level between Latinx, I don't like that word, Latinos and Latinas, and whites occupies an intermediate position. A majority of whites, in both the expression of their beliefs and the practice of their lives, do not want to integrate with blacks. It goes on to say many important things that we all need to learn. I confess that I am a white racist. Would any of you be willing to confess that because of the institutional racism that we swim in, live in, and live our lives in, that we all, who are white racists? Could any of you say out loud,
Reverend Beatty,
I'm
so
a white
sorry.
racist?
Your time is up, but
Practice
thank you
it
for
in
sharing.
the mirror at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, and I apologize, the last name is hard to read. Is that you? Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm here to talk about, there is a residence at 1029 West Waterloo Road. I just live across the street and just up the street a bit. They're wanting to conduct a dumpster trash business in our residential area. This would be Ward 9, Mr. Freeman's ward. And I've never met the people. I'm sure they're very nice. I have no issues with the business in and of itself. But the issue that I have with this is, and obviously you can tell I disagree with it, in that they're moving a trash business into a residential neighborhood. And along with that, they're using these dumpsters, and I'm sure you've all seen dumpsters are not small, very heavy metal. They move these dumpsters periodically throughout the day, shaking our homes in the area. They also make quite a racket. I understand there's some other things going on there, but I have not witnessed them personally. And that is that they apparently go through the trash trying to find things that maybe they can salvage and sell or keep, or I don't know what they would be doing this for, but they are. They're actually having the trash from the dumpster out on the ground, going through it, and to find whatever that may be. At the end of the day, this is a very old and well-established neighborhood. The house I live in, my family has lived in since 1933. It was built in '24. Most of the homes in the area are about as old as that. And even many of the families that are in that area have been in their homes for many, many years. As in mine, I've been there 36, but my family, again, since 33. So we care about the neighborhood. And this just really isn't a business that I feel would benefit our neighborhood, our property, values, and just the day-to-day business that they're carrying on here. So I would ask that this ordinance not be passed to allow them their commercial request, to do business there as a local homeowner.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. And Mark, after the meeting, will you be so kind to meet with Councilman Fusco and Councilman Freeman?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Harrington Hargrove.
Good evening, Council. Harrington Hargrove, 1008 Laurel Avenue, Akron, 44307, Ward 3. And I'm here in reference to economic development for my community. Not for myself, but for my community. We all need a hand up in that neighborhood. So I'm asking this council to allocate funding. As the gentleman said about their project, allocate. Nothing gets done unless you allocate. And I'm just wanting this council and the mayor's office to formulate a plan to include us. I mean, inclusion. My community shouldn't be left behind anymore. This council knows what's going on in our community, and I'm asking you to do something. As the council and as the mayor's office, be a part of what we're trying to do in that neighborhood. Give us a hand up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hargrove. Is Nancy Carpenter here with us?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Carpenter, and I'm here to oppose the conditional zoning of the residents at 1029 West Waterloo Road. I have lived in the house next door to this property for 54 years. I don't feel that this should be allowed in our neighborhood. It is right outside of my kitchen window, pretty much. It is so close to me that the back corner of their home is on my property. There's only 3 feet between the property and mine. And the constant racket, my house shakes, my windows shake. It's just unbelievable. And they have advertisement that they'll run 7 days a week. There are a family that are running this operation. When those dumpsters hit the concrete over there, I about jump out of my skin. We've had so many accidents in front of our home. We've had a plane crash in the yard, and it's just intolerable what they're doing over there. They do sort through the trash. They pile up whatever they can around the perimeter, and I'm afraid it's going to cause a decline in the property values, and not only further deformation of our neighborhood, deterioration, I meant to say. So I thank you for listening. I hope you'll consider it and look at it the way we do. I appreciate your time and your help. Thank you.
Mrs. Carpenter, thank you so much. And please, afterwards, if you can stick around to meet with Councilman Fusco and Councilman Freeman as well. Bethville, did I see you come in? I think you signed up for virtual, but I thought I saw you. There you go.
Hi, my name is Beth Field. I am the COO and Director of Programming for the Big Love Network. I am here today to talk about the potential passage of a resolution in order to join Power Clean Futures Ohio. I fully support that we do whatever we can to expand our sustainability and environmental justice work throughout our region. This is what I do every day. I work on environmental health equity. I, however, respectfully disagree with Emily Collins's thought that equity comes first and then environment comes later. I think that they both have to happen at the same time. And the reason that I say that is because our redlining district maps from the 1939 Homeowners Loan Corporation map is a direct reflection of the health disparities and the environmental degradation that has happened throughout our city over the past 100 years. It is a 100-year problem that we have that is called environmental racism. and you can't do one without the other. Environment is just a reflection of whether something is a just system or an unjust system. And right now, Akron is failing. There are a lot of ways that that people that work within the city work very hard on environmental issues, but do not equate the equity issues that are involved. So to say that one is pitted against the other is this false dichotomy that we continue to hear. People that are concerned about the environment are not NIMBYs. Oftentimes, they would rather have affordable housing in their neighborhoods, right? Oftentimes, they would rather have things that their kids, when they graduate, can move into, and not at $200,000 a month's rent. Or sorry, $2,000 a month's rent. I heard her talk about the work that I've been doing in the conversations that happened this morning. I was the one that asked them that question about equity in that room, right? We want to talk about Summit of Sustainability Alliance and aligning with the SDGs. We want to talk about the Interbelt process. We are here to help work with you guys, and we're going to Akron, approach environmentalism the way that Akron's going to approach environmentalism no matter who helps us with this, but why would we not get more assistance? There's no reason that they can't help us around specific issues of carbon sequestration. And I'm sorry, I'll be just two more seconds. While we still work on our other sustainable development goals that face our region that we are actively working on. So please invite people to the table for more than 3 minutes at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We now have some individuals who have signed up online to participate during public comment periods. We want to allow them an opportunity. If you are online, I'm just going to ask that you turn your camera on and unmute yourself so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do. I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Keith, we're going to begin with you.
Thank you, Council President Tuberville and Akron Council, for allowing me to speak tonight. I was last at Akron City Council 13,902 days ago. Monday, February 25th, 1985, 38 years ago. That is the night the Kenmore boys basketball team received a proclamation from the city for winning the school's first city series championship crown. Ever since that night, I've become interested and follow politics very closely, from Washington to Akron. Marco Somerville was Ward 3 councilman. Don Brode was Ward 9 councilman. Dave Bryant was Ward 7 councilman. President of the council was Don Pasquale. Mayor was Tom Sawyer. Reason I wanted to speak tonight is racism. Ever since the death of Draven Walker, racism has been brought up. And it has been said that the city of Akron has bled and is broken since Draven's death. That is not true. I believe that a bleeding and broken city became on November 16, 2014, with the death of Justin Weinberger, a white officer killed by a black man. Nobody said it was racism back then. Why is it now? Roles are reversed. Thank you.
Keith, thank you so much for sharing. Libby, are you online with us? Libby, just unmute yourself. Libby, we're going to give you a few minutes to work on your audio. Is Zach online with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Zach, thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. I appreciate this time to speak this evening, and I hope that every single word that I say comes from and through my heart, and that everyone that hears it from a place of compassion. I would first like to start and voice my support for the medical debt relief resolution. I think it's fantastic, and very grateful for all of the diligent, very hard work that Councilwoman Holland has put into making that happen, and to all of council for supporting that. Really hope that the administration will pass that. I would also like to say that today a city representative during council meetings said that they didn't want to work with the Power for Clean Energy Ohio because they believe that their definition of sustainability is based on social justice, the city's. And they don't think that the Power Clean Ohio's definition of sustainability is based on social justice. So I'd really like to ask, I would love to hear from the administration what their definition of social justice is. I think the citizens deserve that definition in print. Because I think words only have meanings based on actions. And the city's actions, tell me where the social justice is in White Pond. Tell me where the social justice is in not even looking into the flooding that will happen downstream and the poor and black neighborhoods that will be affected. Where is the social justice in Riverwoods or Tice Roads? Or where is the social justice in the fact that the Little Cuyahoga is still the most polluted part of the entire Cuyahoga watershed? Where is the social justice in the fact that we haven't even had affordable housing? I mean, I think LeBron James has probably brought more affordable housing to Akron than this administration combined has. Where is the social justice in denying Imakai Okolo his deserved seat on the Citizen Oversight Board? There's so many questions that I need to hear this definition of what social justice is, because I don't see it playing out anywhere. And I would love if social justice would be the heart of any work that is done in the city. And I think bouncing off of that as well, today it was mentioned that there was a consulting contract that the city has with someone from First Energy who has been involved in the whole SB6 fiasco and scandal. And during the same time of that contract, the city has opposed environmental regulations. They're opposing the Power to Clean Future Ohio. They've proposed fracking our drinking water. I think that that's very suspect. And I hope that our council will pay attention and will keep those in mind whenever these hollow words are said from the administration. Thank you for your time.
Zach, thank you so much for sharing. Libby, we're going to come back to you. I think you have audio now.
Thank you.
There you go.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Libby Nehru, and I'm a member of Case Western Reserve University's chapter of Partners in Health Engage, a global health and social justice organization that aims to provide health care to those who need it most. I have come to speak today about Medicare for All. For those not entirely familiar with Medicare for All, Act of 2022, it is a national health insurance program that guarantees health care for all United States citizens. The coverage including hearing, dental and vision services, hospital services, prescription drugs, mental health and substance abuse treatment, and long-term care without insurance premiums, co-pays, deductibles, or other out-of-pocket costs. Healthcare is a basic human right, but our current healthcare system treats it as a luxury, making it inaccessible for millions of economically disadvantaged Americans. While our country spends significantly more money on healthcare than any other developed country, it still has the lowest life expectancy. 27.16% of Akron residents live below the federal poverty threshold. Approximately 5% of residents are uninsured. Every day in Akron and throughout the nation, people are faced with the impossible choice between covering everyday expenses such as rent, food, and childcare, or paying for the costs of healthcare. but we can put an end to this. In the coming weeks, citizens and council representatives of Akron will work to propose a resolution in support of Medicare for All Act 2022, calling upon the federal legislators for its prompt enactment, therefore ensuring that Americans will no longer have to choose between healthcare and bankruptcy. I urge you all in the coming weeks to reflect on the state of our current healthcare system and be one of the members to aid in the passing of this resolution, and in turn bringing our nation one step closer to the universal and affordable healthcare coverage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Libby. That actually concludes our public comments for this evening. We're now going to move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Freeman. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Okay. Is there anything else coming before this body at this time? I think I can look at his T-shirt. He's been waiting to say something all night. Councilman Neal, you got the floor.
Well, yes. Please excuse me for overdressing for tonight. What a beautiful weekend, and it's what community was all about. To see our young men from Buchtel as well as Hoban go down, but especially Buchtel, because it's something special when you look at the challenges that public schools have competing for state championships. Because parochial schools, let's face it, they recruit students from all over the state and outside of the state. But to see Buchtel represent the West Akron community and the city of Akron the way they did, hats off to the coaches, to the students, and to the community that showed up and showed out. And hats off to Luther West, the team, excuse me for forgetting their name. It's sad that somebody had to lose that game, but thank God Buchtel won. And so, again, just want to say thank you, and congratulations to Coach T.K. Griffith and Hoban. I know the administration is trying to look at what their schedules are, and hopefully we're going to have some kind of dual celebration, so we'll wait to see how that comes out. I also want to say I really do appreciate the conversation that took place on the budget. We need more healthy discussion like that on all of our issues. $145 million have come through. That money is to create systemic change in the way we've done business. So much so that the disparities that brought that money into our community, we no longer are facing moving forward. So in our budget, we should have line items that show where we are supporting that investment, those expenditures of the 145. We talk about equitable spending. I know we're talking about item 56, but I don't see that in our budget. And we have to do that now, especially since we don't know what this council is going to look like going into next year. We don't know what the administration is going to look like. This council, this administration has to lay the foundation so that if we're wiped off the face of the earth, somebody could pick up the game plan and know how to move this city forward. We're missing this council. We need to have real discussion about council's budget. It's been stated, our colleagues in Cleveland, our colleagues in Youngstown, not sure about Canton or Toledo, but they have designated budgets for their wards. Our wards are as large as Barberton and Norton, some of our surrounding communities, where they have budgets, police forces. We're working in our communities, we have nothing to work with our constituents with. This has to change, and it has to change with this budget. This budget. So we didn't have an answer what would happen if we violated our charter with the Citizens Review Board. I'd like to know what happens if we violate our charter with the budget. because I'm hoping we do the real work to lay the game plan, to lay the playbook for moving forward. That budget has to be reflective of all the conversations that we've been having. And last but not least, we've declared racism a public health crisis. Independent agencies have talked about that. Where is that equitable shift in our spending in our budget? Where is it? Where do we identify it? And so I'm looking forward to having some more real conversation, healthy conversation, so that we can have clearly identified in our budget how we're going to, one, support the investment of these ARPA dollars, but then two, address all the other needs that have brought before us. We've stated that the budget is a value statement. We've been talking about equity. We've been talking about inclusion. I want to see it in the budget. I look forward to us having those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Neal. Anything else coming before this body at this time? Councilman McKittrick?
Thank you, Madam President. Not to take away from 1040 or Hoban, very proud of those young people with their championships. But this month is Women's History Month. And I'm very proud to live in the city of Akron and in Summit County, because if you look at the leadership we have within our city and our county, there's a lot of history that's been made. And I'm quite proud of that. And when I travel, I make sure I let people know I'm proud of that. But there's something I want to touch base on, because we talk about predominantly male sports. You know, 1972, Title IX came in. Women are still behind in pay. Women are still behind in a lot of different areas. But Ohio High School Athletic Association this year was the inaugural year for women's wrestling in our schools. And Akron Firestone, we had a wrestler. Her name is Emily Lorenzen, and she finished 19-9. So she's making history, you know, and this is Women's History Month. 19-9 on the season. She was a champion at the Lady Vikings tournament and the Lady Raiders, and she was second in the Northeast Regional. She finished 4th overall at state. So kudos to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McKittrick, for sharing that. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.